it's just such a great day for reading poetry outside, and that's what I've been doing. I've been using this poem to help me figure out the theme. I really like finding themes when I'm reading stories or poems. It really helps me understand poems and stories. So what is a theme? It's not what the story is about, but it's what the story is really about. So I'll give you an example. When I look at stories, when I look at poems, the first thing I do is I try to figure out from the details, what is the story or poem mostly about? Then I move on and I try to think, what does this story or poem have to do with my life? Now to find the theme, I have to relate the poem not just to my life, but to everybody's life. How could this poem or story affect everyone? What does that have to do with everyone's life? I'll show you what I mean with a couple of poems of my own.
This poem is called Listen to the Mussels by Shel Silverstein. Listen to the mustn'ts, child, listen to the don'ts. Listen to the shouldn'ts, the impossibles, the won'ts. Listen to the never-haves, then listen close to me. Anything can happen, child, anything can be. When I'm trying to determine the theme of this poem, I have to think back and decide what is this poem mostly about. Well, a lot of the words I see are words like mustn't, don't, shouldn't, and won't. All of these remind me of people who say I can't do something. Then I like to look at the very last line of the poem. In this poem, it says, anything can happen, child, anything can be. Now that last line of the poem is important. It's the one you remember after you're done reading it. So I know that this line is important. It's so different than the rest of the poem. The rest of this poem reminds me of the people who say I can't do something. But the last line says anything can happen. It makes me think that I can do anything. When I think about these two parts of the poem, I decide that the theme is probably, even though people will say that you can't do something, always remember that anything is possible if you just put your mind to it.
How to Paint a Donkey by Naomi Shihab. She said the head was too large, the hooves too small. I could clean my paintbrush, but I couldn't get rid of that voice. While they watched, I crumpled him. Let his blue body stain my hand. I cried when he hit the can. She smiled. I could try again. Maybe this is what I unfold in the dark, deciding for the rest of my life. That donkey was just the right size. Let's look at the details of this poem, and then we can figure out what this poem is about. The first lines say, she said the head was too large, the hooves too small. Someone must have told the author that a painting that she made didn't look right. We know that the author feels bad about this because later she says, I could clean my paintbrush, but I couldn't get rid of that voice. She can't stop thinking about someone else's criticism of her work. Now she throws the donkey picture away. It says, I cried when he hit the can. The can must mean a trash can. Now let's pay special attention to the last lines of this poem. Poets know that because those lines come last, we'll remember them the most, so they usually put important things in these lines. This says, deciding for the rest of my life, that donkey was just the right size. The poet believes that this picture was perfect the way she made it, even if someone else said it didn't look right. She makes that decision for the rest of her life. This is a life-changing decision for her. It's probably something that she'll do whenever anybody judges her artwork in the future. After reading the details, what do you think this poem is mostly about? Pay close attention to those last lines. I think this poem is about someone judging your artwork and saying it doesn't look right, when in fact, it looks just the way that you intended it to.
This poem reminds me of my own experience. When I was a kid, I drew this picture of myself. I had this big head and this little body. I thought thought it was a great picture, but my classmates laughed at it. Now thinking back, I still think it was a great picture, and I wish I wasn't worried about what my classmates thought of it. Now let me take what I know about how this poem reminds me of my life and see if I can make it relate to everyone's life so I can find the theme. Now if I think hard, I start to think that this poem is really about art and how whenever you make art, the only person who you should care about, the only opinion that matters is your own. So that's what I think the theme of this poem is. So readers, the next time that you're reading a poem or a story, think to yourself, what do the details of this poem tell me is what the story is about or this poem is about? Then think, how does this poem or story relate to me? Use what you know about the poem relating to you and try to get that poem to relate to everyone. Once you find how a poem or story relates to everyone's life, then you've found the theme.